Good afternoon, church family. It's 12:30 and it's time for us just to take a break in our day and spend some time getting some encouragement and looking to a God who is in control of our situation and our circumstances. So if you have your Bible with you, I've got a little encouragement to share from Romans 12. And in Romans 12, this is Paul writing to the church in Rome, and he says this. He says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers. Firstly, Paul is saying that I appeal to you. He's saying that I've got a serious matter to bring up. I've got something of great importance. I beg you, listen. Take a moment and stop. Switch off your mind for a second. Take a deep breath and hear what I have to say. And he's addressing the church not as subjects or as pupils or as an authoritarian. Paul comes and he says, brothers, sisters. And so Paul is appealing, he's begging us to listen to what he has to say as peers, as friends, as family. And this is what Paul says, by the mercies of God, to present yourself as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God. And what I realize just in this moment is that right now we have the grace of God on our lives. This is by God's grace, it's God's mercy that is we are presenting ourselves as living sacrifices, but also there's this real sense that we are to present our bodies as living sacrifices. The difference between living sacrifices and the dead sacrifices of old is when you put a sacrifice on the altar in the times of old, what would happen is that the sacrifice would stay on the altar and be burnt up and be a pleasing aroma to God. But the difference between a dead and a living sacrifice is we are living sacrifices. And when we are sacrificing ourselves to God, when we are fixing our minds on God, when we are taking a moment to offer ourselves to God, to depend on God, we have the potential to hop off the altar. We are alive, so we have the potential to sometimes carry the worries and burdens by ourselves instead of running to God. So I find this is so encouraging that it's actually something we present daily, regularly, that we come before God in prayer constantly as holy and acceptable to God, which is our spiritual act of worship. Right now, we can be relying on our own works, our own abilities, our own skills, or we can be relying on worshiping a God who is in control. And the whole idea of worship is that we are taking our gaze off the things of this world and we are focusing on the glory, the majesty, the greatness, the grace of God for us. And then the second verse that I want to encourage us with is that Paul goes on to say, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by the testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed. I love the order of this passage. How at the start it's like when you offer yourself in worship and your mind is fixed on God and fixed on who He is and His grace, His mercy, His power for us, then we won't be transformed to the world because we are not focused on the sufferings and the pain of the world, but we are drawing strength from God. And that transforms us and renews us. And that enables us to live currently in such a way that can benefit and to alleviate the anxiety, to alleviate the panic, to alleviate a lot of the stress that people are going on, because we ourselves have taken time to center ourselves on who God is, to realign our gaze, and to worship God for who He is. So wherever you are right now, I just want to encourage you that as we offer ourselves as living sacrifices to God, may God meet you where you are. May God love you where you are, and may you be a great source of encouragement to the world around you. That's been our midday manna for today. Have an incredible